Good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I am your host, as always, Tony Defio, and I thank you very much for joining me on this very lovely Friday night. I mean, it was a lovely day all the way around in Pittsburgh, and it's just a lovely night. It's going to be a lovely weekend, and I am not a meteorologist, and you didn't come here for the weather report, but I just can't help it. I can't help it. I love mild and warm weather. And I'm enjoying myself right now. I think I got a little tan during the week, walking and running. So life is good. And I hope life is good in your neck of the woods as well. And before I continue, as always, I'd like to please ask you to subscribe and like our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel. Or should I say subscribe to and like our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel. We bring you live shows each and every day and night, including this show. Earlier, if you were tuning in, you saw Touchdown Under with Matty Peverall and Mark Davison. We have The Hangover on Monday with Brian Anthony Davis, yours truly, and the great and very insightful Shannon White. We have The Scobro Show on Tuesday evening with Dave Schofield, one of our editors, and his big brother, Rich Schofield, who you will be seeing this regular season doing the reaction article, the knee-jerk reaction. He did a great job during the draft, so you'll have that to look forward to. He's probably going to do them during the preseason, so get ready. Only a couple months away. Wednesday we have Know Your Enemy in the regular season, but this time of year, the off season, it's the curtain call, and that's with Jeffrey Benedict. The great Jeffrey Benedict and Shannon. Thursday, it's the preview with Jeff Hartman, Dave Schofield, and our podcast producer. That would be the great Brian Anthony Davis. And let's see, is that all the live shows? We have Bad Language over the weekend. We have shows Q&A Sunday night. We Run the North with Kevin Tate. I believe that's all of our live shows. I think I got them all this time. I think I did. And if I didn't, you can remind me in the live chat, or maybe Brian will remind me in the Stern text. Nah, he's pretty cool. I'm just kidding. He won't do that as far as I know. And also, if you're watching this live on Facebook, then we're on Facebook. All those shows that you can catch on YouTube, you can also catch them on Facebook live. And as I always say, please be gentle, Facebook, in those comment sections. It's a lovely weekend. You can't be angry. And, of course, you can catch all those shows after the fact, all of our live shows on any audio platform of your choosing. I personally like iHeartRadio, but we have Apple, Google, Stitcher, iTunes, you name it. Wherever you can get podcasts, you can get our stuff in the audio format. And we also have audio-only shows that you can get each and every week, including the Steelers half-hour, power hour with Chris Pugh, What Ian's Talking About with Kyle Kreis, Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman, the Stat Geek with Dave Schofield, the Live Mic with Michael Beck, the War Room with Matty Peverall, a whole host of shows. You can get those, again, any audio platform of your choosing. So please check it out. Oh my gosh, how can I forget these poor kids every week? Jeremy Betts, Andrew Wilbar, the Draft Fix. My goodness, they do such a great job with the draft. This past draft, the 2022 draft, and they're already working hard on the 2023 NFL draft. So Mel Kiper, eat your heart out. They're coming for you. Check them out. You won't be sorry. All right, that's enough hype. It's enough hyperbole. And please also check out Behind Steel Curtain, the website, our editorial side. We bring you news each and every day. We bring you film breakdown. We bring you breaking news. We bring you commentary. Anytime there's a breaking story, anytime there's an important story, anytime there's a funny story, we'll have it for you. It's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. So please check that out. You will not be sorry. It's my favorite Steelers site, that's for sure. But I might be biased. But I think I have good taste too. So please check it out. Now let's check out the live chat. Speaking of checking things out, and of course, Jared Devil, as always, he's on a roll now. He's number one again tonight. First one in. Welcome, Jared Devil. State of the Steelers, very appropriate. He says, "Hey, Tony," or maybe she says, "Hey, Tony." I don't know. George Teston, a regular. Just Me, a legend. And she joins us tonight. Hello, Just Me. Steelers Pittsburgh, Kathy Ford. Steelers Freak. I love that name. Steeler Chick 46. What a crew we have tonight. Danny Owens. I think I got everybody. Ryan O'Toole. And he says he's late. Nah, I've been rambling on, Ryan. You're not late. You're just in time for some hopefully good Steeler talk. So the big news this week it happened on Wednesday, and that was the retirement of defensive lineman Stephon Tuitt, a 2014 second-round pick out of Notre Dame, a very talented defensive lineman, very dominant when he was healthy. The problem with Stephon is, he had some injury issues, and some of those things can't be helped, like torn biceps, things like that. So he never quite reached his full potential, I don't think, but he was one heck of a player. He had one heck of a Steelers career. And I'm sad from a Steelers fan perspective. I'm sad to see him retire. But, these things happen in the NFL. I mean, it happens all the time. Players decide to retire after a certain time. Lynn Swann retired after 9 years. Heath Miller, remember him? He retired. 2005 number one draft pick. He retired after the 2015 season. He played 11 years. I don't think anybody expected that. These things happen. Unfortunately for Stefan Tuitt, it came on the heels of a year-long absence from the team due to personal reasons. We all know what the speculation has been about those personal reasons involving his brother, the tragic death of his brother. And of course, there was talk of a knee injury. Nobody knows really the extent of it because they kept everybody in the dark as far as the knee injury, and of course, as far as the family issue too. So nobody really knows the extent of it. But it seems to me that Tuitt was undecided all of last year. He was undecided most of this offseason. In fact, if you talk to some of the players, well, not you, but the media talked to his teammates, namely Cam Hayward and Tyson Alualu, and especially Alualu, he was kind of hopeful or believing that Tuitt would come back. I think Hayward said pretty much the same thing. So I think it was one of those deals where it was kind of almost like a last second thing. He might have been leaning towards coming back after thinking about it all off season, but at the last moment, he decided, you know what, I want to go in a new direction. He just graduated from Notre Dame. He got his degree from Notre Dame. Congratulations to him for that. It's a great school, and it's a great accomplishment, especially once you begin your NFL career and you're making you made the money that he made during his career to have the ambition to go back to school and complete your degree and do something more outside of football. To me, that's admirable. So, I'm sure that factored in, and who knows what else factored in. But the bottom line when it comes to that is really, I've kind of maintained this opinion since last year. It was really none of our business, the reasons why Stefan Tuitt was absent all of last year and what his thought process was this entire offseason until he finally decided to make it official and retire. It really was none of our business. I'm not even that sure if it was his teammates' business, to be honest with you. If it's something that's really, truly personal to him, his teammates or his friends, and Cam Hayward talked about how they're basically best friends. Their wives are really close, so they're going to have a bond probably for life. So, but not every coworker is your friend. So, I'm not even sure if it was their business, but not to be too negative about the reactions and the speculation. I'm not, but the thing that really stuck in my craw was this notion, especially after he retired and made it official, that he was he believed that he was gonna do this all along. That he sat out all of last year, and he was sitting back collecting a paycheck or paychecks, and this was his plan. He was that calculated that he was gonna take a full year salary, not work, string the Steelers along, and then retire. That to me, that was something that I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. That people were saying that somebody on the site the other day described it as it seems like a money grab to me. Which, I mean, a money grab, that just seems so irrational to me to make that kind of a statement. I'm pretty sure Stephon Tuitt struggled with this decision all of last season while he was out, and all of this offseason. This wasn't something where he was. I mean, first of all, him and his family suffered an epic tragedy. I mean, I believe his mom witnessed the tragedy, his brother dying of a hit and run accident last year. So, I mean, that's just a tragedy. And the fallout from that for him, involving his family, just for him personally, losing his brother like that at such a young age, but at any age, it's tragic, but at a young age and in that fashion, I mean, that's just awful. And then now you're left with, I don't know how many other siblings he has, but all this responsibility suddenly falls on him, taking care of his mom, and who knows what else involving his family, so I don't know, who knows what his brother's situation was as far as the family and and who he left behind. So, he's dealing with all that stuff, and he's also trying to decide if he wants to continue to play professional football, and to do that takes 100% dedication. And again, I'm pretty sure he was struggling with it. He wasn't like sitting back and relaxing for an entire year and just going on vacation, and so somebody in his position, once you're done, you're done. When you're playing a professional sport like football at the highest possible level, there's only a certain amount of time you can do this, and once you're done, you can't go back. Like me, I just turned 50 years old. If I said today, you know what, I don't want to write anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm burned out. I don't want to do podcasts anymore. I'm burned out on podcasts. I can walk away from it for 5, 10, 15 years and decide to do it again in the year 2037. If podcasts are still a thing then, and if anybody reads anything anymore by 2037, but football, baseball, basketball, hockey, swimming, you name tennis, you name a sport that you play at the highest level. Once you walk away, it's hard to come back. So this was not a decision, I believe, that he came to lightly. This was something he had to put an awful lot of thought into, and whether he led people to believe he was coming back or not, that's really his business. I mean, we've all had a change of heart about something, right? That last second change of heart, where maybe you surprised people, maybe you disappoint some people. Who knows? I don't know. We've all had that in our lives. I mean, it's money doesn't change being a human being. It doesn't change the things you go through. It might make it easier, like Larry Richard, the KDK morning host, often says about money. It's not everything, but it takes the edge off. I get it, but just because somebody's making a lot of money doesn't mean their life is easy. And I think Stephon Tuitt's last year is a great example of that, or an unfortunate example of that. So, like the things that and I realize they're millionaires, and their lives as far as their finances are concerned are much better than most of us, I would say. But like some of the things that these guys have to listen to if they decide to pay attention to social media or to talk shows, to me, it's just, my goodness, and then we get mad when they lash out, we call them immature. Oh, they're immature. Well, I mean, there's only so much you can take of that stuff. I mean, back in the day during snail mail, when these players would receive snail mail, they probably had to read a couple hundred a week of, nasty, I'm sure there were some good ones too, but nasty letters. Well, today, if you're on social media and you're a high profile player, I mean, you're dealing with that millions of times a week, probably thousands of times a week anyway, where you're just constantly inundated with negativity, people coming down on you, people being irrational, and you're tweeting stuff like, oh, do you like sweet potato pie or pumpkin pie? And you're getting responses like, you suck, you fumbled, you won't be able to catch either one of those pies because you're going to drop it because you're a horrible receiver. So they deal with that all day long. I mean, that would eventually get to somebody after a while. So, just because they're making a lot of money doesn't mean, they can just turn all that stuff off. It's not just a matter of flipping a switch for some people. Some people can do it. Sidney Crosby, you would never know he was on social media. I don't even think he has an account. Ben Roethlisberger, same way. A lot of these players can do it, but most can't because they're products of society, and society is built around social media these days. So that's pretty much all I had to say about Stephon Tuitt as far as his decision and the reaction to it. Again, I wish him all the best. I hope he, goes on to have a great post NFL career, whatever he's doing with his life's work. Chuck Noll often talked about that. And this is a great example of somebody maybe wanting to make a difference outside of football. Not that you can't make a difference in football, because I think a lot of professional athletes and collegiate athletes, they can make a tremendous difference in the community, and they have over the years, regardless of what some people might think of professional athletes as a whole. And some people like to paint with a broad brush, to quote Mike Tomlin. But I think most professional athletes set great examples for their communities and for kids and for everybody. So good luck to Stefan Tuitt. As far as what should they do to replace him, immediately after he announced his retirement, things shifted from speculation about Stefan Tuitt's future immediately to what do they do now? And of course, the popular sentiment was for them to go out and sign a veteran defensive lineman. And I saw the lists, and really none of them impressed me all that much. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody who's still out there would make that much of a difference for them. My philosophy, and it's my philosophy, obviously I'm not working for the Steelers, and of course I'm not an X and O's guy, so what do I know? But I've always believed in, you build with the draft, you build with young players. And they have such a young roster right now. They have one of the youngest rosters in the NFL. Last year they were second. They might be number one right now. I don't know. But if it were me, and this is just me, I would see what you have with the young guys that you already, they've brought in so many young defensive linemen over the last few years. Cam Hayward, they have Cam Hayward. They have Tyson Alualu. He'll be back. Nobody's sure if he's going to be the player he was the last 2 years before he got hurt. But as of right now, he's back. And I realize the median age for those two guys is 34. Cam's 33. Tyson Alualu is 35. By the way, happy belated birthday, Tyson Alualu, May 12th, just like me. So I hope you had a great birthday. So they're not going to be able to play, all 60 minutes every game. No defensive lineman does that anyway, whether they're young or old. So they're going to have to rotate in and out. So I'm not saying that excuse me, too much talking. I'm not saying that they're going to be in 100% of the snaps, and then they'll just have a third guy in there. But I think there are some intriguing options with the young guys. Obviously, they just drafted Marvin Leal from Texas A&M, and the thing that cracks up about the opinion on him is when Tuitt retired, I heard more than one person say this. Well, if he wouldn't have left them hanging, meaning Tuitt, they could have addressed the draft differently. But they drafted a lineman in the 3rd round. And think what you want about the Marvin Leal, and I know he has his weaknesses, his flaws, perceived flaws anyway, including maybe edge rush speed and the size to stop the run. But he came into his senior season as a highly thought of prospect, and he was considered, at least at the beginning of his senior year, to be a candidate to get drafted in the top 10 or 15. And he lasted the 3rd round, but I mean, he was in the top 50 as far as, if you looked at the big boards. He was in that group pretty much the entire pre-draft process, if I remember correctly. So this is not a bad prospect. Now, what did Kevin Colbert say before the draft? And he said this more than once over the years. We want, meaning they, the Steelers, we expect guys that we draft in the top 3 rounds to eventually be starters sooner rather than later. That's the goal. That's the projection for those guys, is to start eventually. You know, Stephon Tuitt was a 2nd round pick. Javon Hargrave was a 3rd round pick, and they both became starters almost right away. So to say that that without Tuitt, they have no pedigree as far as an option. Well, Leal, obviously he's an unknown, and he's going to have to earn his keep, but there's an intriguing young prospect. They invested a lot, believe it or not, to bring in Isaiah Loudermilk last year in last year's draft. You know, they faced a lot of criticism for trading away a draft pick to move up to get him in the middle of the draft. And he has 1 year of experience under his belt. He impressed some folks last year. Montavious Adams, 3rd round pick in 2017 by the Packers. He's bounced around the league. He really impressed at the end of the year last year. He's back. Obviously, Chris Wormley is a veteran. He's a younger guy, but he's been around. He's a former 3rd round pick. Not great against the run, but he had 7.5 sacks last year. Henry Mondeau, undrafted guy. You know, he showed a lot of ability last year, at least as a backup. Carlos Davis, 7th round pick 2 years ago. His career has been kind of hindered by injury so far, but you know, there's an intriguing young athlete. The word coming out of college is that maybe he was undercoached at Nebraska, or he was used the wrong way. I don't know, but I mean, he's coming into year 3. He should be able to show something by now. So my point is, you have all these younger guys. You have a young roster. Now that Tuitt has made his decision, maybe you can use this time now to get these guys some experience. And maybe you can find 1 or 2 starters for your future in this group. And maybe in the meantime, they can help this year playing alongside Cam and Tyson Alualu. That's the direction I would go. To go out and bring in one of these veterans. And that's always the popular cry after when a player retires or is cut or is injured. Go out and bring in a veteran. That's there's more of a demand for that now than there's ever been. I think, you know, because of the popularity of the NFL, the 24/7, 365 nature of the league now, and all the fans having a voice. So there's always a cry for that. But I would personally, that's what I would do. I would see what you have with these guys, because really, until you find a quarterback, and hopefully it'll be Kenny Pickett because they drafted him in the 1st round. But until you find your next bona fide starting quarterback, you really don't know what you have as a team as far as a true contender. Like, you don't know if you're a true contender and you're probably not going to be a true contender until you find a really good starting quarterback. So I still think the Steelers are one of those teams that, with a few bounces that go in the right direction, a few calls that go in the right direction, they could be a 10 or 11 win team. But if some of those calls and bounces go the negative way, they could be a 7 or 8 win team. So that's the kind of roster I think they have. Does his retirement hurt the defense? Well, of course it does. Of course it does. But the thing that encourages me is we saw how dominant this defense. It was just one game, but we saw how dominant it was with Alualu in there last year, and it seemed like his injury was the biggest downfall for the defense, especially against the run, because we saw how the defense struggled against the run at the end of the 2020 season when he missed a few games. So he's a very integral part to that defense into the running game. So provided he comes back and that's, there are no guarantees when you get to be 35 years old, but provided he can give them the kind of performance on the line that he did in 2020, mainly, then I think that's going to go a long way in making this defense a lot better, especially against the run. So, but if both Hayward and Alualu stay healthy all year, and again, there are no guarantees, then I think the line's going to be better this year simply because of that. Then you factor in these younger guys, maybe with some more experience, they can start to grow and develop. And somebody mentioned this on Slack the other day. I think it might have been Dave Schofield. If you put Adams in there, in some packages, he can play nose tackle, and Alualu can slide over and play defensive end. So there are options. Adams, he has pedigree. Leal, we don't, he certainly has pedigree, and, we don't know what kind of pro he's going to be. And what if he's a good kind of a pro? I mean, we always like to think negative, but what if he's a really good young player, right? Loudermilk showed me something last year. So there are possibilities there. So that's what I would do. I would try to develop these guys and try to continue to maintain a young roster. Bring in a veteran. We've seen how many times that these guys, they're not willing to accept a reserve role once they get signed. And not that every player is going to be like that, but to me, I think you're better off seeing what you have. I mean, if there's a bunch of guys still sitting out there in June, are they really that good at this point? I don't know. So those are my thoughts on stuff. So I will now take some time to answer some questions and comments, highlight some comments, and I'll start with Steelers Freak, who has a long one. Let's see what he has to say. It's from earlier in the show. And he asks, the question I have is why not put Daniels at center so he can anchor the whole line? He has played the position before and is the best O-lineman on the team, but what do I know? I am the old grumpy guy. Well, that's a good question, Steeler Freak. I don't know. I mean, he's mostly played right guard in the NFL as far as I know. I think they might be better off keeping him at right guard, and Mason Cole seems like at the very least, a serviceable center. So if he starts the season as your center, that's not bad. And you have obviously Kevin Dotson, Moore, and Shooks to round out the line. And if Kendrick Green can maybe take a step this year, maybe I know he's very small and he has those issues with his arms and everything and arm size, and maybe that's something you can't fix at the professional level, no matter how much coaching you do, no matter how much you change your technique, no matter how much you lift in the gym. Maybe there are certain things you just cannot improve at the pro level. I don't know, but I think the good thing about that Steeler Freak is Daniels is versatile like that. So if they had to go to him, they could do that. So that's one good thing about that. So that was a good question. Thank you for the question. Let's see what else we got down here. Steeler 46 says about my my pumpkin pie versus sweet potato pie quote from earlier that she's hungry now for pie. I don't blame you. I'm pretty hungry too. I've only eaten once today. I'm not going to eat pie though. I'm trying to eat better, but I'll probably eat pie for the holidays when everything's not to go off on a sideways too much. But George Teston asks, never had sweet potato pie. Is it similar to pumpkin pie? I think it's pretty similar. I like them both. I know it's a very polarizing subject on social media, but I like them both, which is sacrilege to people who like one or the other, but I like them both. Give me either one. Put some whipped cream on. It's simple carbs. I love simple carbs, which is why I'm trying to eat better, because when I eat simple carbs, my pants feel tighter. But it's similar, I think, which, again, might be a sacrilegious thing to say or a blasphemous thing to say to somebody who does not share that opinion. But I would give it a try. I think you would like it. Steeler Chick 46 says our offense meaning the Steelers offense needs to be better so it can keep the defense fresher. Troy Polamalu said it. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame safety. He said years ago, 2009 or 10, I think it was 2009, the defense was struggling. And he said, hey, look, most defenses, when they get exposed by being on the field too long, offenses figure out their tendencies, and it's a detriment. So if Troy Polamalu said that, who am I to argue? So good point, Steeler Chick. You need to be able to establish the running game. You need to be able to dominate or at least win time of possession. I think it would still be a good defense regardless, but it would be that much better if you're winning time of possession every week and keeping that defense fresh. Steeler Freak says about the O-line, the issue is they have some guys that are good at the run while others the pass. No one has both. The offense will go hurry up to exploit, or the defense will go hurry up to exploit that. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the defensive line. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Steelers Freak. You're talking about the defensive line. Well, Cam's good at both. Cam's a potential Hall of Famer. I think Alulu's a pretty darn good all-around lineman. The younger guys, I don't know a whole lot about them right now, which is why I think it'd be cool to see them get some valuable time this year now that Tuitt has retired. I think because eventually, you can keep bringing in veteran stopgap guys every year at different positions, but eventually you're going to have to, no matter what position you're talking about, whether it's quarterback, cornerback, safety, O-line, eventually you're going to have to find younger players and develop them and hope that they can become starters. So the stopgap veteran thing is good and all, but I'm not sure if the Steelers are that team right now where they have to go out and do that. We've seen them do that in recent years, but it's usually to bring in younger guys that have many years left, like Minkah Fitzpatrick. Even Miles Jack, he's 26 years old. He's someone that can theoretically stick around for a while. But these guys that are just sitting out there 29, 30, 32 years old, at this point, with where they are as an organization, kind of starting over after their franchise quarterback retired, is that really necessary now? When you were trying to do all that you could to win, when you still had Ben Roethlisberger, maybe something like that made sense. But now, I think it's the best teams, and I know the Rams are an outlier right now, the way they've been doing business, but the best teams traditionally are the younger teams. I'll never forget the great Monday night game from 2018 between the Rams and the Chiefs, 54-44. It's a great game. My mom was watching it unbeknownst to me, and she called me, or I called her. We talked a couple of days later, and she was like, "Man, I can't believe how young they all looked on both teams." I mean, she likes the NFL. I mean, what a great mom, right? But I think she was kind of pointing to something that maybe we didn't want to accept at the time, and that's like teams like the Steelers and the Patriots even were getting older, and the younger teams were beginning to dominate, and the Chiefs and the Rams have been dominant ever since. So a veteran stopgap, I think if you're one or two players away, great, do it. Maybe, that's been part of the Rams' success. We see younger teams who are on the cusp of contending, bringing in veterans to help. But when you're a young team and you're kind of unproven and you're trying to figure out who you are, I think you need to continue to try to figure out who you are before you start bringing in veterans like that. Let's see what else. We scroll on down. What else we have here? There's still a lot of sweet potato pie talk out there, and just me and others are helping George Teston find a good sweet potato pie. So who knows? Maybe he'll become a big fan of it. I recommend it. I mean, I'll eat anything at Simple Carbs. So I mean, to me, you can hand me either one, and that bad boy will be gone in 10 seconds because I eat fast. And Ryan O'Toole says, I think 500 is the absolute floor, all caps, he says, for a Steelers team, period. Ceiling is to be determined. My guess is 11 wins minimum. Wow, that's optimistic there, Ryan. Of course, we all hope you're right. I mean, that would be great. It would probably mean a lot of things, that the defense is dominant, that the line's a lot better, that Najee Harris is having a great second year. But most importantly, they found a quarterback. So if they win 11 games minimum, the future's probably bright for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Mark Tobin says of DeMarvin Leal, he might be a two-way guy who can play inside and outside. Yeah, you never know what you have until the guy steps out on the field. And at the professional level, I mean, obviously he's in good hands with Tomlin. With Daryl Austin. It's the offseason. I forget names. And of course, Brian Flores, who's a defensive guru. So, they're going to be able to, and he's going to, they're going to be able to, and he has a really good position coach in Dunbar. So he's in good hands. So if anybody can get the most out of Leal, I think it's these guys. Steeler Freak says of Brian Flores, he looks and talks angry. They need it. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they need a good swift kick in the you-know-what. They've often, players have talked over the last 2 or 3 decades about Coach Mitchell. He was I think he's still with the organization, but for a time there, he was an assistant defensive coach, and he was tough. He would players would go home, and it's what I've heard them say on the radio during interviews. They would complain to their wives and girlfriends about Coach Mitchell and how rough he was on them. But when it was all said and done, they all loved him. So maybe they need some of that. All right. Steeler Chick 46 says Fitzmagic, meaning Ryan Fitzpatrick, retired. He did. He retired this week. I think he was 39, or he is 39. Never got to play for Pittsburgh. That's funny you say that because he was often linked to them after Ben's injury. In fact, in the days after Ben Roethlisberger suffered his season-ending injury, when word came down that they had traded for Minka Fitzpatrick, it was that very same week. I texted my uncle, the Steelers traded number 1 pick for Fitzpatrick. And he texted back, why? He sucks. He's too old. He thought I meant Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I meant Minka. But he would have been I think he would have been a decent backup here, or maybe a stop. I mean, if they would have got him that year as a stopgap quarterback, they probably would have done really well. But we'll never know now. But yeah, he had a decent career. He was the proverbial journeyman. He played for a ton of different teams. The game I'll never forget with Fitzpatrick was earlier in his career. The 2010 season, the last year Pittsburgh went to the Super Bowl. That it was Pittsburgh against the Bills in Buffalo. The game went into overtime. Early in overtime, Fitzpatrick hit a wide open receiver. He had a receiver wide open for a game-winning touchdown in the end zone. And I forget who the receiver was, but he dropped the ball. And that's the game I always remember when I think of Ryan Fitzpatrick. But he played for a lot of different teams. He had himself a nice NFL career. He made himself a lot of money. And, he seems to enjoy life. So kudos to Ryan Fitzpatrick. We should all be so lucky to be a journeyman quarterback in the NFL. Christopher 11 says of Fitzpatrick, he's a smart dude. He sure is. Harvard grad, as Steeler Freak brings up. Jackie Davies says, I don't think he was very good. I mean, he wasn't great. Obviously, he was a journeyman quarterback. He's not going to the Hall of Fame, but he was okay. And Mark Tobin, speaking of retirement, the great Frank Gore retired this year. He signed a one-day contract with the 49ers and retired as a 49er. I mean, and Mark says Gore changed the narrative that running backs don't last long. Yeah, I mean, there are. I mean, Adrian Peterson's another one. Jerome Bettis. There are a lot of running backs that have lasted. Fred Taylor lasted a long time. They don't all run out of steam at 25, 26 years old. So, to speak in absolutes, when you bring in a guy like Najee Harris and say, oh, he'll be done by the time he's 25, 26, they won't even give him a second contract. You don't know that. He might be around for 12, 13 years. John Riggins was around for a long time. Franco Harris. I mean, people often criticized him for running out of bounds instead of taking a hit and then falling out of bounds. But I mean, when he retired, he had the most carries in the history of the NFL, and he was second in yardage. So, he had a 12, 13-year career. So it can happen. Jerome Bettis, I mean, he put his body through a lot. I mean, he was overweight. He was often injured. After a game, it would take him the entire morning, next morning, to get out of bed and get downstairs. But he managed to last in the NFL. And when he retired, he was the fifth leading running back of all time. LaDainian Tomlinson, Curtis Martin, Emmitt Smith. There are a lot of examples out there of running backs who are durable. It's not just, all right, they're done in 3 or 4 years. I mean, we've adopted that narrative too much with a lot of these players in recent years. The whole dime a dozen thing with receivers now, just like it's been with running backs the last few years. Now it's receivers. So State of the Steelers says, will you be attending any games, Tony? Well, I don't know. It all depends. I'm not going to lie. I'm not rich. So, it's hard for me often to justify a $120 ticket to a game. I mean, I'm not one of those people that, what I do is I park my car a mile or so away, and then I walk to the stadium, and I don't buy concessions because I can go 3 hours without eating, maybe a beer, but not even that sometimes. But still, it's a lot of money, $120 for a game. So I don't know. We'll see. I often get offered some free preseason tickets, and maybe I'll go to one of those this year. We'll see. How about you, State of the Steelers? Are you going to any games? You going to training? Anybody going to training camp out there? It's only about 7 miles away, and we still have more pie talk caramel apple pie. Man, I'm getting hungry. So, what else we have here before I bid you adieu? My favorite Steeler Freak said AP, and somebody else said favorite running back. Mine growing up was Eric Dickerson. Loved him. My favorite non-Steeler player ever, Eric. I just love the guy. Loved him. I followed him everywhere. When he's with the Rams, he didn't get an adequate raise there, so they traded him to the Colts. Followed him there. Kind of lost track a little bit after that. He went to Atlanta. But my favorite, I still have his rookie card. I love him. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a running back. If you can imagine that. I think I was running like a 6'7" 40, but I wanted to be a running back. My favorite position as a kid. Eric, and I loved Eric Dickerson. So, all right. Claude Bishop says $120 ticket. It's a cheap ticket and a cheap seats. Ain't that the truth, Claude? It is. Nothing is ever cheap anymore. So, all right. On that note, I'm going to call it a night. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope it was a great show. I hope you learned something. I hope I learned something. And until I talk to you again, which will be on Monday with Brian and Shannon on The Hangover, I hope you have a great weekend. And remember, don't forget, check out our whole family of podcasts, both live and the audio, and check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website. And have a great weekend. And go Steelers. Goodbye, everybody.